There was a time when Australia didn't just export iron ore, coal, or cattle. It exported identity. Salt in the air, sun-bleached hair, board shorts hanging off balconies, road trips up the coast, youth without schedule, freedom sold as fabric. And few companies captured that identity better than Billabong. For years, Billabong wasn't just a clothing brand. It was a passport. If you wore it, you weren't buying cotton or polyester. You were buying a version of life. The ocean, adventure, rebellion, summer that never ended. From the beaches of Queensland to malls in California, from surf shops in Bali to snow towns in Europe, Billabong became one of Australia's loudest cultural exports. Then something happened that destroys more companies than competition ever could. It believed the story would last forever. And when reality changed, the empire nearly drowned. Billabong began in 1973 on the Gold Coast, founded by Gordon and Rena Merchant. This mattered, because unlike many global brands later engineered in boardrooms, Billabong came from the environment it sold. It was born from surf culture, not marketing departments. The first products were practical, durable board shorts designed for surfers who actually needed them. Triple stitching, strong materials, functional fit. The product earned credibility because it solved a real need. That is how many great brands begin, not with slogans, with usefulness. The name Billabong itself carried Australian identity. A billabong is a waterhole formed when a river changes course. The word felt local, rugged, connected to land and movement, perfect for a brand built on coastlines and freedom. Through the 1980s and 1990s, Billabong rode two giant waves at once: the rise of surf culture and the rise of lifestyle branding. This was the golden formula, because surfing itself was niche. But the idea of surfing, that was universal. Most people would never surf Pipeline, Bells Beach, or Snapper Rocks. But they could wear the dream, and Billabong sold dreams exceptionally well. The company expanded beyond board shorts, t-shirts, hoodies, backpacks, watches, accessories. Soon, Billabong wasn't just for surfers. It was for teenagers who wanted to look like surfers. That distinction made billions, because lifestyle brands scale far better than sport-specific brands. By the early 2000s, Billabong was flying. Retail stores expanded globally. The logo was instantly recognizable. The company became one of Australia's strongest youth fashion exports. It sponsored elite athletes, competitions, and events. It lived inside magazines, videos, beach towns, and teenage wardrobes. For many young Australians, Americans, Europeans, and Asians, Billabong represented cool. And in retail, cool is a currency more volatile than oil. At its peak, Billabong became a public market success story. Investors loved the growth. Consumers loved the image. Management loved expansion. And expansion would become the beginning of the fall. Success often creates a dangerous pressure. When growth becomes expected, slowing down feels like failure. Public companies feel this intensely. Markets reward momentum. Quarterly reports become rituals. Analysts ask one question in many forms: what's next? And too often the answer becomes more. More stores, more markets, more acquisitions, more categories, more revenue. Even when what built the brand was focus. Billabong began buying companies. This was meant to diversify and accelerate growth. It acquired brands such as Element, Von Zipper, RVCA, Nixon Steaks, and other assets across action sports categories. On paper, it looked smart. Capture adjacent youth culture, create a portfolio, cross-sell customers, increase global footprint. But portfolios can hide a simple truth. Owning more brands does not automatically create more value. Sometimes it creates complexity. Integration is expensive. Cultures clash. Inventories multiply. Management focus fractures. Debt grows quietly. And when demand weakens, complexity becomes weight. At the same time, retail itself was changing. Fast fashion chains moved faster than surf brands. Online commerce began rewriting how young people discovered and bought clothing. Social media fragmented taste. Trends accelerated. What was cool for years could become stale in months. This mattered because Billabong had grown powerful during an era when youth identity moved slower. Magazines monthly, television weekly, word of mouth regionally. Now trends moved instantly. A kid in Melbourne, Los Angeles, London, and Jakarta could all shift preferences in the same week. And younger consumers were becoming less loyal to heritage logos. They wanted freshness, not legacy. Meanwhile, surf culture itself changed. Surfing remained respected, but mass youth culture diversified. Streetwear rose, sneaker culture exploded, gaming culture expanded. Athleisure entered mainstream wardrobes. The beach lifestyle no longer monopolized aspirational youth identity. It became one option among many. That would have been survivable with disciplined leadership. But Billabong carried another burden: debt. Acquisitions and expansion had increased financial pressure. When revenues slow, debt becomes louder. Interest payments don't care about brand heritage. Lenders do not accept nostalgia. Then the global financial crisis hit in 2008. Consumer spending weakened, retail traffic softened, confidence dropped. Discretionary purchases, exactly the kind lifestyle brands depend on, came under pressure. A teenager can delay a hoodie. A family can postpone premium apparel. And once growth slows, leveraged companies feel pain first. Billabong's margins tightened. Sales pressure increased. Store economics worsened. Inventory management became more difficult. Discounting rises when demand weakens. But discounting creates another risk. It can damage brand perception. Lifestyle brands depend on image. When consumers see constant markdowns, the logo loses aura. The product begins to feel less exclusive, less aspirational, more common. And common is dangerous when your premium was built on identity. As problems mounted, investors reacted. Billabong's share price, once a star of the Australian market, collapsed dramatically from peak levels. Billions in market value evaporated over time. For shareholders, it was brutal. For management, existential. For competitors, revealing. No brand is untouchable. Then came takeover interest. Private equity and strategic bidders circled at various times, sensing that a famous global brand had become distressed. When strong brands weaken financially, predators appear. Not because they love the brand, because they love discounted assets. Billabong faced refinancing stress and survival questions. Would it be broken apart? Sold cheap? Disappear? This is the stage where many once famous companies lose themselves completely. Not through one collapse, through negotiated surrender. But the story did not end there. Because failure sometimes creates clarity. Billabong began restructuring. Costs were cut, non-core assets reviewed, operations simplified, leadership changed, debt pressures addressed through recapitalization and strategic support. This was painful but necessary. Turnarounds rarely look glamorous. They look like closures, write-downs, redundancies, and hard choices. The company had to remember what made it valuable in the first place. Not endless acquisitions, not financial engineering. Identity, product, community, authenticity. There is a lesson many lifestyle brands learn too late. You cannot spreadsheet culture. You cannot acquire cool indefinitely. You cannot borrow your way into relevance. You either remain connected to customers, or you drift. Billabong's later years involved consolidation within a broader industry shakeout. Eventually, parent company ownership structures changed again, with Billabong becoming part of larger brand groups through acquisitions in the action sports apparel space. To some, this looked like loss of independence. To others, survival, and survival matters, because dead brands inspire nostalgia. Living brands still have options. Today, Billabong still exists. That alone is significant. Many brands from its era vanished entirely. Some became licensing shells. Some live only in vintage stores and old photos. Billabong remains present globally through retail, online channels, and youth apparel ecosystems. Smaller than its peak, less dominant, but alive. And sometimes survival after hubris is the most honest comeback, because not every return means reclaiming the throne. Sometimes it means escaping extinction. Why did Billabong nearly drown? Not because Australians stopped surfing, not because the logo was cursed, not because one quarter went badly, because multiple forces collided. It overexpanded, it accumulated complexity, it leaned on acquisitions. It carried debt into changing markets. It underestimated how fast youth culture moves. It assumed heritage guaranteed relevance. It discovered that cool expires unless renewed. This pattern repeats constantly. A brand becomes culture, then mistakes culture for ownership. But culture is rented. Every generation decides again, every year, every season, sometimes every week. That is why youth brands are uniquely dangerous businesses. When they work, margins are strong and growth feels limitless. When they fade, decline can be sudden. Because customers are not just buying products, they are buying self-expression. And self-expression changes fast. Billabong also teaches a broader Australian lesson. Australia often creates globally admired brands rooted in authenticity. Surf, coffee, fitness, mining expertise, design niches. But scaling globally introduces new pressures. Capital markets, quarterly expectations, foreign competition, operational complexity. What works on the Gold Coast does not automatically scale cleanly into every mall on Earth. Yet something about Billabong still resonates, because it came from somewhere real. Not a trend lab, not a spreadsheet, a coastline, a lifestyle. A founder solving a practical problem inside a genuine culture. Consumers feel that difference, even years later. Authenticity can weaken, but it leaves residue. That residue can become the foundation of revival. There are younger brands today repeating similar mistakes. Rapid expansion, too many categories, too much debt, overconfidence in social media hype. Assuming popularity equals permanence, Billabong's story should scare them, because markets are ruthless with delayed humility. Imagine the emotional arc. A small Gold Coast business becomes a global icon. Young people worldwide wear your logo. Investors celebrate. Growth surges. Then years later, you watch the same logo discounted, distressed, doubted. That is not just business. That is identity under pressure. And yet, unlike many fallen giants, Billabong did not become a total ghost. It bent, it shrank, it changed ownership, it lost status, but it endured. There is dignity in that, because comeback stories are often misunderstood. People think a comeback means returning to number one. Not always. Sometimes a comeback means surviving your own excess. Sometimes it means becoming sustainable after chasing scale. Sometimes it means accepting smaller success over glamorous collapse. Billabong once tried to be an empire. Now it survives as a brand. That may be wiser. The logo still means something to millions. Maybe nostalgia. Maybe style. Maybe memories of summer. Maybe a first surf trip. Maybe growing up near the coast. Brands built around emotion can live longer than financial headlines suggest. But no story like this ends without warning the present. Some company dominating youth culture right now is studying charts, celebrating growth, buying competitors, leveraging balance sheets, assuming momentum will continue. And somewhere inside that company, the seeds already exist. The seeds of overconfidence, the seeds of complexity, the seeds of forgetting who the customer really is. Because markets rarely kill brands suddenly. Brands usually weaken themselves first. Markets just finish the job. Billabong sold freedom, then got trapped by expansion. It sold simplicity, then became complex. It sold movement, then became heavy. That contradiction nearly drowned it, yet it floated back, not to rule the ocean, but to keep breathing. And for many companies, that is more than enough. The next time you see the Billabong logo, remember, it is not just surfwear. It is a warning stitched into fabric, that even brands born from sun and waves can sink under the weight of their own ambition.